Hello, this is Dr. Harriet Fraad on Capitalism Hits Home, an interpersonal update. This is a show about the intersection of capitalism, class, and our personal lives. This episode is about what's happening to American men, because something is surely happening, and it's dedicated particularly to Brian Willard. Thank you, Brian, for your suggestion that I speak about what is happening to men. Well, one thing that's happening is it's a disaster. The wall that held up American masculinity is crumbling fast. In that wall, the bricks were things like no needs, no emotional needs, little emotional expression outside of anger, no vulnerability, always supportive, always hanging tough, never frightened. The emotions that were allowed were mainly anger. The need that was allowed was the need for sex. And that's about the only neediness that traditional men were given social permission to express. Or the need to advance at work, but that's less of an emotional thing. Men are in a period of very rapid transition for which they have had no preparation, and for which they've had no support. When we, as women, left what had been our traditional feminine place in the home, which was true for white women, and when in the 60s and early 70s America was an 80% white country, that has changed. But our place was in the home, caring for men and children. We had a movement, though. We had a movement to support our getting jobs, to support our wanting more, to support the militancy that's now coming to fruition as it's women who are the most militant labor leaders, whether it's Sarah Nelson of the flight attendants, who was really instrumental in stopping the federal workers from being furloughed with no pay. Or it's the teachers all over this country who are standing up and walking out and getting better pay and better working conditions. We had a movement behind us. We had each other. We were lucky because within the stereotype of femininity, as the inferior sex, we were allowed to be needful. We were allowed to need each other's support. Women have always counted on other women's support. As men have counted on women's emotional support, other women count on other women to emotionally support us. We knew we needed support to change our lives, and we got it in the form of the women's liberation movement and of consciousness-raising sessions where we sat and talked about what was going on in our personal lives and how it connected to the position of women that had to change. Boys were not allowed such freedoms, starting when they're little. They're not allowed to cry. That's considered sissy behavior. They're not allowed to be emotional. I remember with my own son, even when he was about 7 or 8, when he had a friend sleep over, one of them slept on the floor. When my daughter had a sleepover, they both snuggled in her bed, and they were fine with that. When boys start to want to be emotional, they're accused by other boys of being sissy, quote, faggots, a horrible anti-homosexual slur, which boys didn't even know what it referred to, but they knew that they should be ashamed of being affectionate with other boys or emotional with anyone. Now, young men are growing up in a world that requires very different skills from the ones their fathers learned. Millennials particularly need a new masculinity. They need skills in introspection, that was never part of the masculine stereotype. And relationship, compromise, listening. It's women who are now saying no to the old masculine behavior. It's American women who initiate almost all, i.e., 70% of the divorces in the United States. And it's women who now are the majority of people refusing marriage. For the first time in American history, the majority of American women are single by choice. And men are lost and alone. After divorce, women report being happier. Men report being unhappy. Why would that be? Well, when there's a divorce, women look to their women friends for support. They look to their relatives. They look to each other. When men leave a relationship, their friendships don't allow that kind of emotional support. They're alone. And alone is a terrible place to be for human beings. We are herd animals. All mental health depends on connection, and men become disconnected when their wives or girlfriends leave them. They no longer have friends and family. In fact, in 2/5 of the cases, men who leave their families because of a divorce, even if they didn't initiate it, never see their children again after 5 years. When women leave a relationship, our sense of femininity, which is not dependent on having a man in our lives, flourishes. It used to be, before the women's liberation relationship and movement, that it was kind of shameful for a person who is a woman to be divorced, to be without a man. That's changed. Being without a man is as prestigious as being with one. So that men are weakened and isolated often when women leave. No wonder American men are really in trouble. The old masculinity doesn't work at home, and men were considered real men when they had a girlfriend and a well-paying job. Well, now men no longer can count on having a girlfriend or a wife or a well-paying job. For the past 40 years, male wages have flattened. Women have wages for the first time, so women's wages are increasing, although they're lower than men's. But men's wages have flattened. Until the 1970s, actually between 1820 and 1970, men received what was called a family wage, which was enough money so that they could support a family of dependent wives and children. That is no longer the case. In addition, better jobs often require education, which was also considered rather a sissy activity among many blue-collar men. And it is now women who are the overwhelming majority getting college degrees and graduate degrees. In the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, those are still male-dominated fields, but those are fields that require quite a bit of higher education. They are well paid, but that isn't where most jobs are. As a good example of what happens to men's anger when it has no outlet, and when men react to the deprivation that comes with not having the two tokens of successful masculinity, a woman or a well-paid job, all of the mass murderers are men. They're mostly white men, but not exclusively. And in the studies that I've done, and as I've looked at the 64 mass murders that have happened just since 2019, just since January, just about all of the men had one or both of the things happen in their lives. The latest murderer is a prime example. Gary Martin had just been fired from his job. When he came back to the job site, fired and killed 5 people and wounded several policemen. These many, many men come and shoot a bunch of strange women. In one case that was notable, a man was refused a date by the attractive women at his gym, and so he came in and shot 9 women at the gym. But what is common about almost every single one of these mass shootings is that the shooter was denied a relationship with usually a woman, but not exclusively, or a decently paying job. The most famous murderers lately, the one in Las Vegas that killed 59 people, was not a man who had broken up with a girlfriend or lost a job. He didn't have a job that connected him to anyone. He was utterly disconnected. The other one that killed a whole bunch of people lately was in Orlando, where a gay man came in and shot up a club because he had been betrayed in a sexual situation with someone that he loved. He had sex with someone who didn't tell him he had AIDS. And he was infuriated. So that if we look at the 2 big markers of masculinity that used to be there, well-paying jobs that could support a family, and a woman's devotion, they're both gone. Not that there aren't women devoted to men, but the number of men with jobs that could support a family is about 5%. Now you need 2 wages to support what one male wage used to. So men are in trouble, particularly right-wing men are in trouble. There's a brilliant map that was developed in the Washington Post and then republished in Mother Jones magazine that juxtaposes states with the most insecure men, with the most fragile masculinity, and those who support Trump's agenda with its love of guns. Men in the demographic that supports the NRA loving Trump had the most searches for topics that indicate male fragility, erectile dysfunction, penis enlargement, how to get girls, growing your penis size, testosterone, Viagra. U.S. manhood is in trouble indeed. There's some recognition of the trouble younger men have in defining a different masculinity in the advertising world. The huge capitalist corporation, Procter & Gamble, wanted to present and increase the sales of Gillette razor blades to younger men, millennials. Their research told them that the innovative, successful approach would be to address toxic masculinity. In the words of the capitalist researcher Scott Galloway, founder of the business research firm Gartner L2 and a professor at the business school at NYU's Stern College of Business, and let me quote, "The, quote, woke business strategy will be a big theme in 2019. That's where the money is. The Gillette commercial shows a series of men harassing women and boys bullying other boys until the men step in to intervene. "We believe in the best of men," a voiceover says, concluding because boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow. Here is that advertisement, which makes my point.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something.
Thank you for listening. This episode has been brought to you by Democracy at Work. Please support our work. Visit our website at democracyatwork.info.